UAE is the center of the world in many ways, but with the country hosting the COP summit, there's a lot of focus on the prosperous West Asian country. With me is UAE's ambassador to New Delhi to talk about this mega summit. We are halfway through. There's a lot of things which are expected as well. But if you can talk about the key priorities and key developments which have happened so far.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Let me tell you about what has been achieved so far. As you have seen, we have made the loss and damage fund operational with more than $700 million, $100 million from those coming from the UAE alone. There have been a few declarations with quite a few signatories. So the agriculture and food one has more than 130 countries who signed on to it. The climate health one has more than 120 countries who have signed on to it. We have 50 companies who have signed on the oil and gas decarbonization charter. India has supported us and signed on the climate finance charter with 13 countries so far.
A lot of developments. There are some pledges as well, if you can talk about that. And also something that developing countries have been talking about is that the developed world should contribute more to climate finance. If you can elaborate what has been achieved on that front from the COP summit.
Well, as I mentioned, there are 13 countries now so far who have signed on the climate finance. As you have seen from the numbers, the loss and damage fund, which has been an issue of debate or a conversation that has been ongoing for quite some time, has moved ahead with a significant amount. There are more amounts coming into different initiatives and different projects that are being launched during the COP28 presidency. What you could see overall, and this I believe is one of the success metrics of the COP28 presidency, is this is one COP where countries have come forward and have put money on the table. And what we would do as the UAE is obviously to follow up on the outcomes coming out of the presidency and to make sure that they garner momentum, keep the momentum into the next COP presidencies as well.
So every country, when it hosts the COP summit, like to have its own imprint. So what is that Emirati imprint on this year's summit, the climate summit, which is still underway?
We make things happen. And this is something that the UAE has been known for. So we don't just come out with big announcements or big initiatives that we want to work on or we want to target, but we actually make sure that we can get out of something with very tangible outcomes that everyone could feel and everyone could say that, yes, we have felt those impacts. We can see that things are changing. We can see that things are moving. I believe the fact that there are 50 companies who have signed on to the oil and gas decarbonization charter says a lot. The UAE has been leading, let's say, on that front, because if you look back at the time before the COP28 presidency, one of the main criticisms was that how can an oil producer and exporter lead countries and lead the globe on climate and be the president of COP28. And I believe by being able to achieve such a milestone, we have proven that this does not undermine that and that we can be both and we can make sure that all countries can have some sort of an agreement with those multiple declarations on the way forward to mitigate climate risk.
You started your answer by saying make things happen, and perhaps that reverberated well here in New Delhi. We saw the Indian Prime Minister traveling there just for one day, but still traveling there amidst this busy schedule. So how do you see the Indian Prime Minister's presence there, taking part in so many meetings, bilaterals with your leadership as well?
It was great and very productive, as you mentioned. I attended a bilateral meeting. You cannot not see the special bond between the two leaders. They have a very good friendship. They discussed various topics. Obviously, COP28 was the most important, but they also discussed other bilateral and multilateral related topics and issues. And you could see that this, if anything, adds and keeps momentum going in the relationship. As you mentioned, the Honorable Prime Minister have participated in quite a few sessions. He also have had his own bilateral meetings, had conversations on the sidelines, even a selfie that went viral. So as I said earlier, quite productive, and I hope for the Honorable Prime Minister also quite successful.
Many outcomes, including that selfie as well. But talking about the India-UAE co-chairing an important event on green credit initiative. How do you see both countries coming together on this crucial issue of climate change?
It's a testament to the relationship between the two countries. His Excellency Majid Suwaidi came to New Delhi, met with a few senior government officials, and also met with the G20 Sherpa. And the whole idea is that we understand that there is this overlap between G20 priorities and the outcomes that came out of the summit, as well as what we are trying to do with COP28 presidency. And we want to make sure that those tangible outcomes in that overlap are being carried forward in the COP28 presidency, whether through the green credit that you saw or any other initiatives and projects that the two countries will be working on.
Mm-hmm. One of the key announcements made by the Indian Prime Minister was that India has pitched that it will also host the COP33 in 2028. How do you see this announcement? And that too coming from the territory of UAE. The Indian Prime Minister chose to make the announcements from UAE.
Well, I'm confident that India would host it successfully, hopefully, once this has been confirmed, and that they will do a great job just like they have done in the G20 presidency. The fact that the Honorable Prime Minister has announced it from the UAE says a lot about the relationship, and the fact that he has chosen being in the UAE and his time in the UAE to announce it means that this relationship is one that you can count on in terms of support and in terms of making sure that your priorities and what you're trying to achieve in terms of climate or anything else is being supported as well.
Just to understand again, because you've already answered it, but still to highlight it more, how does UAE plan to give shape to the global narrative on climate change? Because there are still questions that the world is still not taking it seriously. The leaders come, they talk, there's nothing concrete. So what do you have to say on that, and what UAE is doing to shape this entire debate around climate change?
Well, if you just look at what has been achieved so far in COP28 presidency, the fact that you have the highest youth participation level, the fact that this is the largest COP28 in all kinds of measures and matrices, the fact that governments and countries have come forward with pledges and commitments to all kinds of initiatives, to all kinds of declarations, is already a testament that there is a way to bring everyone to agree on certain matters, and there's a way forward for mitigating climate risk and making sure that we are planning for climate change and that we are adjusting and modifying our national goals to make sure that we can accommodate that and that we can actually achieve those goals.
And also rise of UAE as a regional and perhaps a global superpower as well, because so many leaders you hosted. How do you see, I'm not talking about the climate debate, but hosting so many leaders is not an easy job. Climate change, I mean, the summits are usually logistically as difficult as well.
Well, we don't only look at bilateral relations, but we also look at the UAE's role in various multilateral platforms, even many multilateral platforms. We have been active overall in all of those, but I believe that the past few years you have seen this level of activity more visible with quite a few heads of governments and presidents and prime ministers coming to the UAE, being hosted in the UAE, taking part in COP28, the UAE also doing its own state visit and so on and so forth. What you see now is probably it becoming more visible, but the UAE has been active in all of those that I have mentioned for a long period of time.
And of course, India as well, coming back again to India. And my final question as well, the Indian Prime Minister in UAE for the second time this year. We have seen key outcomes during his first visit earlier this year, including on trading in the national currencies as well. So how do you see the India-UAE relationship going forward? Any key deliverables both sides are working on? What next for this relationship?
Well, what's next is always a question to the two leaders, and as I told you, whenever they sit and they talk and they discuss various topics and various matters, there are always new ideas that are put on the table for myself and for my colleague in Abu Dhabi to follow up on. And the matter of fact is, to everyone, it seems like we have achieved quite a bit in this relationship, especially after the signing of the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. But the way we see it from the UAE, and I believe also from my Indian colleagues, is that there is always more to be done, and there's absolutely more that will be done.
What is that almost more to be done? What are the new ideas this time around? We saw your visual as well, meeting with the Prime Minister when the Prime Minister was departing. So any conversation, any anecdotes you like to share with us?
Well, he asked me personally to pass on his regards to the president, and the words that he used, he said, please do pass my regards to my brother, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and that he had a very successful, a very nice visit. And I told him, he should not expect any less whenever he visits the UAE.
We've many times seen the Indian Prime Minister use this specific word, brother, as well, and I believe your leadership made an exception as well so that he can speak first at the COP summit as well. So these initiatives show that how essentially the relationship has been going forward.
Exactly, and I think the fact that you can see this and everyone can see this, it just says a lot about where the relationship stands, and it's up to us now to keep pushing onto new frontiers and to explore various fields of cooperation, increase investments in new sectors, support the startup and SME ecosystem, and make sure that the relationship is growing at the state level and also at the emirate level.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION. It was a pleasure speaking to you here at the UAE Embassy on COP and other things, including India-UAE relationship.
Thank you
so
very
much,
much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.